mired in endless pain, have matured and become much more than a man. Yes, I've grown from a man to a god.
Pain, the leader of Akatsuki, sought to gather all the Biju with the goal of terrorizing and attacking every village in the shinobi world. Pain believed he was a god, the reincarnation of Hagoromo. He was convinced that everything he did was right, that all the destruction and massacres he committed were for the greater good of the shinobi world. But why? What was the philosophy behind Pain? What was his motivation? What made him believe and act upon all these beliefs? Pain was actually a fabricated name, an alias used by Nagato to serve as a symbol of his experiences, philosophy, and ultimate goal. He believed that to achieve peace, everyone in the shinobi world had to understand the true meaning of pain. The seeds of this philosophy had already started to form when he was a child. Uzumaki Nagato was born in Amagakure during the Second Great Shinobi War. When he was young, Madara Uchiha implanted the Rinnegan into his eyes without his knowledge or his parents. During the war, Nagato and his parents hid inside their home to avoid the battles raging around them. One day, two Konoha shinobi entered their house in search of food. Nagato and his parents tried to escape, but they were caught. His parents were forced to attack the shinobi so that Nagato could flee. In response, the Konoha ninja killed Nagato's parents. Realizing they had mistakenly killed civilians, the shinobi tried to apologize, but Nagato was overwhelmed by grief and fear. Unable to process his sorrow, he instinctively activated his Rinnegan, killing the two shinobi and avenging his parents. At a young age, Nagato experienced firsthand the deep suffering caused by war. He questioned why his innocent parents, mere civilians, had to die in a power struggle driven by greedy shinobi. He wondered why he had to suffer in the endless cycle of hatred among shinobi. This was when he began to envision a world where such tragedies would never happen, a world of true peace. After burying his parents, Nagato, now an orphan, was forced to leave his home in search of shelter and food amid the ongoing war. No one he encountered was willing to help him, and eventually he collapsed from hunger and exhaustion. That was when he was found by Yahiko and Konan, who, like him, were also orphans. Together, they struggled to survive, searching for food however they could. They shared the same dream, a future where they could use their strength to end all wars and bring peace. Yahiko was deeply dedicated to this dream, which inspired Nagato to embrace it as well. To achieve their vision, the three of them believed they needed to become shinobi. They approached the three legendary Sannin of Konoha, asking to be trained in ninjutsu. Orochimaru offered to kill them to end their suffering, but Jiraiya, feeling guilty for his involvement in the war, decided to teach them how to protect and defend themselves instead. Jiraiya found a safe place for them to live and taught them how to fish. He despised war and had been forced into it. Above all, he longed for peace. He initially refused to teach them ninjutsu, believing it would only lead to more violence and teach them the wrong way to live. Instead, he tried to instill in them the ideals of peace. One day, the three orphans were attacked by Chunin from Iwagakure. Fearing that his friends would be killed just as his parents were, Nagato instinctively used his Rinnegan to kill their attackers. When Jiraiya arrived at the scene, he saw Nagato's eyes for the first time, and it reminded him of the Sage of the Six Paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the original owner of the Rinnegan. Because of this, Jiraiya finally decided to train them, telling them that sometimes violence and pain were necessary to protect others. Jiraiya even believed that Nagato was the reincarnation of Hagoromo, and that, like the sage, Nagato would one day use his Rinnegan to create a world of peace. Jiraiya trained them for 3 years, enough time, he believed, for them to fulfill their potential. He then returned to Konoha, trusting that the three of them would bring peace to the village and eventually to the shinobi world. Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan later formed an organization called Akatsuki, aiming to bring peace and end war. They gained many followers in Amagakure, a village that had long suffered due to its unfortunate location, caught in the crossfire of every war. Akatsuki became a beacon of hope for the people. As their influence grew, Akatsuki caught the attention of Hanzo, the leader of Amagakure, who saw them as a threat to his power. Hanzo arranged a meeting with Akatsuki, pretending to seek cooperation for peace negotiations. However, it was a trap. Hanzo, with support from Danzo and Konoha's Anbu, ambushed Yahiko and Nagato, taking Konan hostage. They threatened to kill Konan unless Nagato killed Yahiko himself. Nagato refused, but Yahiko took his own life, thrusting himself onto Nagato's kunai, entrusting his dream to his friend. He believed that Nagato would achieve world peace. Overwhelmed with grief and fury, Nagato rescued Konan and slaughtered Hanzo's men, though Hanzo himself escaped. After this, Nagato marked a line across his forehead protector, symbolically severing his ties with Hanzo's village. Nagato had always been sensitive, easily moved to tears by his own suffering and the suffering of others. Yahiko had tried to teach him that crying wouldn't change anything. Jiraiya once told Nagato that his sensitivity was actually his strength, because it allowed him to truly understand pain, making him more compassionate. Nagato believed he had to bear all the pain his friends endured so that he alone would suffer. However, losing Yahiko shattered him completely. His death forced Nagato to reevaluate his philosophy. He realized the absurdity of the shinobi world, the same thought that had crossed his mind when he lost his parents. Drowning in pain, he rejected Jiraiya's idealistic belief that peace could be achieved through friendship and unity. He saw it as childish and naive. He believed that humanity would never end its cycle of hatred and death. Pain took Yahiko's principle of understanding suffering and made it the core of his own ideology. He believed that no one could truly appreciate peace without first experiencing the horrors of war. He ensured that everyone he encountered would witness the destruction of what they held dear. In his mind, the only way to create peace was to make everyone desire it as desperately as he did, and the only way to achieve that was by making the entire world suffer as deeply as he had. Thus, Nagato devised a plan. He abandoned his name, becoming Pain, a symbol of all he had endured and the philosophy he sought to impose upon the world. He created the 6 paths of pain, with Yahiko's body as the Deva path and the face of Akatsuki. Nagato controlled them from afar. Pain recruited the strongest shinobi from different villages and amassed enough wealth to finance their long-term plans. Akatsuki began capturing all the Jinchuriki, extracting the tailed beasts, and unleashing destruction upon the villages. Pain believed that once everyone had experienced true suffering, true pain, they would stop fighting and seek peace. Years later, still loyal to his version of Amagakure, Pain and Konan started a civil war to overthrow Hanzo. The villagers, having suffered under Hanzo's rule, saw Pain as their savior. With his terrifying 6 paths abilities, he killed Hanzo and wiped out the remnants of his supporters. The villagers began to see him as a god because of the terrifying power of his 6 paths abilities. Eventually, he cornered and killed Hanzo. Pain embraced the idea that the village needed a godlike figure, and he single-handedly wiped out Hanzo's remaining loyal followers. Every week, Pain would also bring down rain upon Amagakure. Pain acted beyond the limits of morality because he felt he had taken on a forbidden role. He chose to become a god. When he killed Hanzo, the people of Amagakure saw him as a savior of the world. The villagers needed someone who could erase their suffering, and Pain was the one who could and had already done so. Pain gradually accepted and saw himself in that way, as a god. With his divine eyes, he could be in multiple places at once. He could revive the dead. He had truly taken on the role of a god. Even Jiraiya saw him as the reincarnation of Hagoromo himself. However, what Pain was truly doing was proving his philosophy. His goal was to create a peaceful world, a world free from conflict. His philosophy, in a way, made sense. When everyone experiences the same pain, the same unbearable suffering, they will do everything in their power to avoid feeling it again. In other words, only through suffering would people seek peace. Pain believed that by sacrificing many lives, by killing mercilessly, and by inflicting suffering on the world, he was ultimately working toward the greater good of the shinobi world. He was convinced that this was the only way to fix the world of the shinobi. In the future, those who remained would attain peace and would do everything they could to avoid another war. Unlike Pain, Jiraiya never intended to achieve peace through destruction. Jiraiya wanted to create peace by fostering friendships and human connections, whereas Pain sought to destroy everything first. Long story short, Pain eventually targeted Naruto in an attempt to capture the Nine Tails. After the Hokage refused his offer, Pain sought to destroy Konoha entirely. At that moment, Naruto arrived. He fought Pain, but was ultimately immobilized. Helpless, Naruto listened as Pain lectured him about the cycle of hatred and how the world suffered from never-ending conflicts. Pain wanted to gather all the tailed beasts and bring about destruction in order to achieve peace, because that was the lesson taught by his master. Pain then asked Naruto if he had a better way to end the war. Naruto didn't know. He was silent, unable to answer. At that moment, Hinata arrived to save Naruto. Pain attacked and attempted to kill her, trying to show Naruto what true suffering was. However, Naruto eventually managed to defeat Pain and discovered his real location. There, Naruto learned about Pain's past and his motivations. He understood Nagato's logic and even acknowledged that what Nagato was saying made sense. However, the method he used to achieve peace was wrong. Naruto ultimately found his answer. The only way to attain peace was to break the cycle of revenge, the very cycle that fueled all the wars in the shinobi world. Even though he was angry that Nagato had killed Jiraiya and destroyed Konoha, Naruto refused to retaliate. He realized that if he did, he would only perpetuate the cycle of hatred and cause even more deaths. Nagato was shocked by Naruto's response, which reminded him of Jiraiya and his own younger self. He didn't know if Naruto's solution would work, but he chose to believe in him. As a sign of his faith, Nagato sacrificed himself to bring back everyone who had died during his attack. In his final moments, he warned Naruto about the challenges he would face in the future and hoped that he would be able to overcome them. After redeeming himself, Nagato returned to the dreams of his childhood. His respect for Jiraiya was restored, and he believed in Naruto's vision to end the cycle of hatred. Nagato died with a smile on his face, wondering if everything that led him to this moment had been the work of a true god. Nagato's story, how he developed his philosophy and pursued his goal, was actually quite logical. Perhaps what he said was true. Only when people experience suffering will they seek to avoid it. Nagato merely accepted the titles given to him by others. Jiraiya believed he was the reincarnation of Hagoromo. Yahiko and the Akatsuki saw him as the savior of the world. The people of Amagakure viewed him as a god, and all he did was try to fulfill the needs of those around him, their need for peace. Nagato was, at his core, a kind, emotional, and sensitive child. He never enjoyed violence. He was deeply terrified when he first killed someone, the person who had murdered his parents and tried to harm his friends. He supported Yahiko's cause because he believed it could stop the wars and the deaths he so despised. He justified the countless deaths he caused by believing they were necessary for a greater purpose, a long-term plan for a better future. Even though Nagato declared himself a god before his enemies, privately, He never saw himself as anything more than a man searching for peace. No matter how cold and ruthless Pain seemed, Nagato remained the same at heart, kind and respectful toward others. Perhaps we can criticize Pain's methods, but his reasons for doing everything were noble. All he ever wanted was peace. Thank you.